But I really don't have any regrets. I really don't. I've lived exactly how I've wanted to. I've tried my hardest every single time. I didn't win the matches that maybe I should have always won, but I really gave it my all. So that for me is enough.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Body Serve. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm James.
The Australian Open is over. I want to first start with a disclaimer that I want y'all to be a little bit patient with James on this episode because he's suffering from decrepitude. He's got a bad back. He's had to deal with the Australian Open. It's been a rough week for you, I should say.
I don't need a disclaimer. I'm allowed to be in a bad mood.
You're up to the task. You're ready for the battle.
Well, not really, no. So that was a thing that happened. The Australian Open is definitely a thing that happened.
Uh-huh.
I don't really have anything else, so thank you for listening.
You are so funny. It is just what the listeners came here for.
I know. I guess you can be the positive one on this episode.
I'm gonna have to be. I mean, I just want to know going forward, what are these slams gonna look like for you? Because...
For me?
Yeah, because...
Well, they need to start acting right.
They're not gonna...
Not gonna get better?
They're not gonna get better for you. Like, your faves are gonna be losing.
Well, maybe
you're not acquiring enough faves to offset and make up for the fact that your current faves are losing.
The problem is that I'm acquiring the wrong faves.
Okay, let's put those out there.
I'm acquiring faves who play like a junior against a 15-year-old girl.
Wow. That is... Well... I thought we dealt with that on the last episode.
No, but we'll talk later in the episode about what I'm hoping to see from the 2020 season that I did not see in this Australian Open.
Sure.
It's a better way to handle it.
More mature way to handle it?
Well, no promises.
Let's get it started. Let's get the party started with the men's side.
Yeah. So Novak Djokovic wins his 8th Australian Open title, record extending his 17th Grand Slam title. It is very crowded at the top of the men's leaderboard.
He came back from 2-1 down against Dominic Thiem in that final. I read a stat that it was the first time that Novak had come back from 2-1 down to win a slam title.
Really?
Yeah, which is a nice feather in his cap.
Right. So Novak wins the first set. Then we get this extended period of spotty play. Novak is dizzy, lacking energy, and it's very obvious to people watching. And there was much hand-wringing and a lot of just resignation among Nole fam that it was done, that Dominic was obviously going to win. He took a medical timeout, he got some juice from his box, and like only Novak can do, he managed to regroup, gather himself, convince himself that, you know what, I can do this. I'm Novak Djokovic. Why not? Or at least I'll try. And he did it.
These big three, and I would say that Novak is chief of these, are so dramatic on the tennis court.
Well,
they're so dramatic. The emotions, the hormones even, are so plentiful.
Now, let's be straight here. We have seen this from Novak before. We have seen him struggle with injury, both real and imagined, in finals. We've seen him struggle with accuracy, motivation, energy in Grand Slam finals. He put Andy Murray through it several times. And we talked about, there was one Australian Open final against Andy Murray that was particularly annoying, just because of the theatrics. Now, I don't presume to know what Novak was feeling, but let's just say that Novak is very good at using the options available to him to unnerve his opponent.
That is so fraught.
Was that diplomatic?
No, that was very shady.
No, I mean, he didn't do anything against the rules except slap the umpire's foot.
It left a lot to interpretation.
Well, that's fine, but you can't say that I said anything untoward or untrue.
Skillful shadiness.
This is not...
What is it that you're trying to say here?
I'm saying that we have seen these tricks and wiggery and giggery before from Novak.
Okay.
We've seen it before. he's been extremely injured and come back to win and look like a demigod. And so is that adrenaline? Is that his intense competitive fire, which is not in question? I don't know. But if I'm Dominic Thiem, I'd be a little annoyed. And Dominic is clearly better than me because he's not.
Dominic Thiem could also have been better and won the match.
Yes, because now we're at a place where he has everything, right? He has the game to win a slam. He has the incredible fitness to win a slam. And I think, well, there are two things going on. He's playing big three GOATs in finals, and he maybe just needs a little bit more edge. Just like a little bit more killer instinct. But like, he's there. He's so close.
For the longest time, the knock on Dominic was that he was a little bit too unbridled. Mm-hmm. That even if he were able to harness it for a moment or two to get through earlier stages, there was no way he could harness it and play that level long enough against the big guys. And now we've seen that that is a hurdle that he's conquered. As to whether he can go forth into the 2020 season and beyond and replicate that on a regular basis, that's yet to be seen. But Dominic Thiem, he is a cut above. I mean, I've been saying this for a while now. We've had this discussion, who is the one who should win, is in the best position to win outside of the big 3, 4, what have you, and it's squarely him. He's made the incremental steps and checked off accomplishments to put him in that position. He's lost 3 slam finals now, the first in 3 sets, second in 4 sets, this one in 5 sets. He's now beating big 3 folks regularly. He beat Novak to make French Open finals. He beat Rafa to make the final here. He came so close to beating both of them to win the title here. I don't see how he comes away with anything but self-belief.
Right. And this puts in stark relief what someone like Stan Wawrinka accomplished, winning 3 Grand Slam finals against the best of the best, playing a game that's not totally unlike Dominic's.
Mm-hmm. Well, the 2014 Australian Open will forever have an asterisk. I don't care.
Oh, okay, fine.
Y'all can fight me on that.
But
it gave him the confidence to be where he is, and good for that. But that one is not like the others.
No.
I will die on that hill, and that death may come by y'all getting me on that hill.
We've covered that before. Amy Lundy at 538 wrote an interesting story about Djokovic's second serve, and it has been much discussed during this fortnight. Through the quarterfinals, it had increased by an average 6 miles per hour. It was all the way up to 104 miles per hour average second serve speed. And people who are smarter than me were observing his serve and realizing the second serve is actually more of a slice now rather than a kick. So a kick is, higher bouncing, but more reliable and a bit slower. And he's hitting his second serve more like a first serve, which is riskier, but the double faults weren't coming with the change in serve. So we're in this place where, some matches were a little bit spotty from Novak, but is it possible that he's getting better? And what does Novak Djokovic getting better in his early 30s mean for tennis? He's ambitious. He says he wants to be the best. Like, he wants history to view him as the best player ever, and he's super close.
You say he's getting better, but he still has to put all those components together within a match. And he didn't do that in this match.
No.
You thought, based on some of his performances leading into the final, that this could be a coronation built off of that perfect melange. Right? The second serve was great in the final. He out-second served Dominic Thiem to the tune of winning something like 56 or 57% of his second serves, which is a lot compared to Dominic's 48-49.
We know that just because a match is 5 sets doesn't mean it's pretty, doesn't mean it's a classic. And when you win 17 Grand Slams, not all the finals are going to be that high quality.
No.
Look at Serena's wins. A lot of those finals, you probably would only rewatch if you were a super fan.
Nadal winning against Kevin Anderson.
You're going to rewatch that one? You're probably
not going to do that.
Right.
That's a waste of time.
The tennis does not have to be pretty.
It sure was dramatic, though, in this final.
Yes.
Novak Djokovic is regaining the number 1 spot with his title, and Nadal losing in the quarterfinals. He now snatches the number 1 spot back, and
Yeah, that was really more about Nadal not equaling his points from last year when he was the runner-up, because Novak defended his 2,000 points as the winner.
I mean,
which is really a net zero as far as how the rankings work.
I see it as a big achievement because...
Well, of course it's a big achievement. I'm explaining the math.
Okay, yes. But you said it's really just about...
Oh, I didn't mean
because for
that.
one, Nadal making the quarterfinals again is still a good achievement. And Novak repeating is not nothing. Even in Australia.
It is not nothing. You are absolutely right. And especially this elbow thing is sort of hovering over a lot of his matches, and he got some treatment in ATP Cup, and clearly it wasn't a huge deal, but it is something that he probably has in the back of his mind.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, heading into this Sunshine Swing, what the men's tour will look like. It's one of the first times that we actually have potentially some actual intrigue at the top of men's tennis. Novak is there, not looking impregnable. Federer, if he's able to recover from that injury situation, the back stiffening up, he's clearly still there. Not playing his best, but still making a semifinal of a Grand Slam. Nadal, unlike last year, to my mind, and from what I saw from last year's final, Nadal played great to the final, and he looked like he came out of that tournament not in the best physical health.
Right.
That is not the case this time. Somehow, after playing through to the end of the season last year, after playing Davis Cup, playing the Australian Open, he seems to be in good health.
ATP Cup.
And this might be the first time in a while that he enters the Sunshine Swing in optimal physical, mental health.
First time in a long, long time.
Yeah, and we know that he is formidable on hard courts.
Yes, he's won Indian Wells several times, never in Miami.
Anyway, and then now we have Dominic Thiem, who'll be defending at Indian Wells, who is boosted, presumably, from this performance. It can only function as some gummy berry juice. By the way, is that what Novak got from his camp in the final? It wasn't gummy berry juice?
No, there are enough insinuations out there who want to say, "Oh, you know, he got this strange substance from his box." Everybody, calm down.
That was not in a clear container. I love that part.
As if illicit substances cannot be clear. You know. Does everybody calm down? No player would be that brazen. Well, I don't think so.
I mean, the issue there is, will it show up on a test or not? That has nothing to do with this. You know?
I know, right?
There's no way for you to know. It just is, and he played with it, which I don't think is necessarily the best thing.
Played with what?
I guess he was asked about it, and he said it was like some magic potion that his camp concocted in their lab.
Well, I don't think you really joke about that stuff if you're in any way worried about failing a test.
Exactly. It's more to poke the media because they're...
Well, yeah, because the insinuation is bold.
Disclaimer, I believe that if you think one of the big three is cheating and doping, you should believe all of them are cheating.
They're all equally likely.
They're all equally guilty, so...
No, not guilty. Equally likely.
Yes, likely to be guilty.
Right. But going back to the ATP in the next few months, Stan Wawrinka beating Daniil Medvedev puts himself back in the mix. Alexander Zverev, who it's hard to describe the type of turnaround that he got from this tournament because of the doldrums where he was after ATP Cup. His serve was a mess.
It was so bleak. He was bleak.
Screaming at his daddy.
He made his daddy cry.
Right.
It was bleak.
And now, we talked about on the last episode, he got rhythm on his serve. He got all the way to the semifinals, played a good match against Dominic Thiem, and this was his first Grand Slam semifinal, right?
Yes.
This was not expected based on his performance earlier this month. And also a little bit of a screw you to the journalists who complained about his exhibition tour with Roger Federer.
This was a shot in the dark for Zverev. It's not like this was a grandmaster plan that he concocted to get where he was.
Right.
This was a bit unforeseen for him as well. That said, he put in the work. He decided that he was going to combat the serve issues by taking some speed off the first serve, getting a higher percentage, with the hope that after a few rounds, he will have developed a good rhythm on the serve, and it worked.
Right.
He joked after, I think, his quarterfinal win that it was a little bit difficult because the serve wasn't working, the forehand wasn't working, the backhand wasn't working, the volleying wasn't working, the footwork wasn't working. Like, he literally listed every facet of the game, and it wasn't working for him. And that he was able to navigate his way through that without losing sets until the semifinal is a credit to him and his talent.
He announced early in the tournament that he was going to donate $10,000 per match win, and if he won the tournament, he would donate his entire prize money. So he ended up donating $50,000.
So many players donated a bunch of money. We're not going to do a roll call of that because it's kind of tacky, I think.
Right.
Just know that the tennis community rallied around Australia at this tournament. And a lot of the fundraising efforts were player-driven. Like, Tennis Australia was pushed by Nick Kyrgios to do the rally for relief, all that stuff. Nick is up to, I think, $90,000 in his contributions. That is one of the more positive things to come out of this Australian Open. The way the players rallied to make something happen.
Right. Speaking of Nick, played Rafa Nadal in, the fourth round?
Correct.
And it was an identical scoreline to their Wimbledon match. I feel like there's a lot of patronizing recaps of Nick's performance at this tournament, as if it's like a coming of age and he behaved like an adult and he approached tennis professionally. I mean, he approached the match in Wimbledon in the same way. Like, he came in with a game plan and it just didn't happen to work.
Also, don't underestimate the fact that he's on probation or whatever it is.
Right.
If he's out of pocket one more time, he gets a ban. That's not nothing.
Right.
That match, not only was the score identical to the Wimbledon result last year, it felt identical watching it as well. It felt like Nick was playing close to his peak, but it still wasn't quite enough. And by peak, I mean his current skill set without the help of a coach, great physical training.
Right.
Like, he could possibly win that match should all facets of what we expect an elite tennis player to have fall into place.
Right.
Which then begs the question, going forward, will he take those steps to be able to win a match like that? Because it didn't really seem that there was that much more that he could do. He had a couple key questionable decisions that he made. He was 5-all in the third set tiebreak, I want to say. 5-all in the tiebreak at a crucial moment, and he goes for a 135-mile-an-hour second serve. That is not ideal. That is not a good choice.
No, you're not Medvedev.
And that double fault, while it gave Nadal set point, he wasn't able to immediately capitalize on it, but he ended up winning that set.
Man, there were a whole boatload of dramatic double faults in this tournament.
Lord,
now that you mentioned it.
Wait till we get to this women's final.
Dominic double faulted to lose the first set of the final.
Yep.
There was also, I feel, a scarcity of excellent, memorable matches during this tournament. That's just my personal opinion. I struggle to identify some matches that I'll think about going forward. And I guess you could say that Rafa and Dominic was one of them.
Yes, it would be one of the few truly memorable matches.
Rafa seemed to be not in a great mood, was pretty testy that day. And the most angry you'll see him get at an umpire was at Orly Tort over a time violation.
The big three had their issues with the umpires in this tournament.
There was a lot of talking to the manager.
Nadal was absolutely talking to the manager in that situation. Does not mean that he's not without some merit in his thinking, but the way he went about it, like this snarky, offhanded brattishness, not into it. I don't want to see that.
And so you will see, to be fair, you will see a lot of, I don't know if manipulation is a word, but like exploitation of the rules by Rafa regarding time, right? And he gets pissed at Carlos Bernardes, at plenty of umpires for the same thing. He likes to take his time.
That being said, it's really not that bad. Especially since this time clock has come into play. Nadal is complying like 97% of the time.
Yes, but within the rules, he wants to control the pace of a match, which really every player probably does.
Yes.
He's just happens to be famous and powerful.
And he's bossy.
Right.
It fits into his
Yeah.
dynamic of being bossy. Like Nadal is bossy, Federer is a little bit... What's the word here?
I was told by AppleCare.
No.
Condescending?
Yes.
That's it.
That's the
bingo.
word. That's the word. Whereas Novak is a little bit...
Also,
what's the word?
condescending.
A little bit different. I'm talking about there are three brands here.
Oh.
Nadal being bossy, Federer being condescending, and Djokovic being...
I guess he's a bit more aggressive.
a little bit more aggro.
Yeah. Which is a shortening of the word aggressive.
Sounds less bad.
Oh,
When
okay.
you say it
I'm
like
just
that?
saying. It's true. He has never won the sportsmanship award for a reason.
Is there a reason why those who have won it that many times?
Popularity.
Okay.
Rolex.
I feel like you're sitting there listening, thinking, wow, there's a lot that they're not saying that they want to say, and you'd be correct in thinking that. Because, like, what's the point? Whatever we could say, y'all know, y'all have heard it, y'all have thunk it. We're not here to let loose and aggravate all fan bases here. Because we got stuff to say about Rafa too, even though we are Rafa fans, right?
I feel that I've been honest.
This is not a dig at you.
Okay.
This is a collective we.
Oh, okay.
Collective we. I'm not better than you in this regard. The word that I want to use for Djokovic is, well, it's two words. Aggro angst.
Yes.
That's what I would go with. Because it's not coming necessarily from a place of ill intent. There's just a lot of like...
Angst, yeah, that is actually a very good word for it. Because he can be like that during a match, and then when the match is over, it's like flipped. It's a total 180. And he can deliver a speech like that, you know, calling for basically world peace and unity and keeping your family close and stuff. Like,
and I don't
he's
think...
I mean, like everyone, he's a multifaceted kind of person. But within matches, that angst comes out when he taps the umpire on the foot.
Within the extremes of fandom, it plays as either you're going hard for Novak or he's a devil.
Right.
And that this aggro angst is fake. Like, that is actually representative of who he is rather than the stuff that comes afterward. And I don't think it's that stark of a contrast.
Because, you know, people do that with Serena, with Roger. However, if you want that to form the full picture of Novak for you, then you can do it.
Yeah.
You know, you can watch his match and say, wow, he's such an asshole because of this, this, and this. But it's not the entirety of a person.
You need to believe certain things to get through it. That's fine. Get through it. Just don't be like...
Yeah, just don't share it with us.
Don't be hurting other people, you know, and don't be dragging us into it. Don't drag us down with you.
Yeah. Let's fight the real enemy, Fabio Fognini.
There are many people to fight. But we should get back to this umpire thing.
Yeah.
Because Nadal and Orly Tort, Djokovic and the umpire, the gentleman in the final... Apologies to that man, I do not know your name, and I was negligent in looking it up. I came straight from work and into the recording booth. And
Roger Federer and Mariana Veljovic, who is now worldwide famous.
It is amazing. I think I have a play-by-play of that coming up.
Famous because, well, obviously famous because she is beautiful, but the tennis Twitterati will remind you she's famous now because she does her job extremely well. She just happens to be a person who is good at her job.
She's got everything. She's got it all. She's got the ability to wrangle Federer in a moment of angst for himself and let him know that he should not try it because she is not the one. She's the one in many regards, but in this instance, not the one.
She has this bemused smile that she uses for all men when they're angry. It like she's done it to Diego Schwartzman in a very funny moment. She's done it to Roger Federer now. She just sort of gazed at him and smiled. No teeth, just a big grin. Like, yeah, I'm okay. You go on.
Nadal and Tort. What happened?
He was called for a time violation warning after a long, very physical 19-shot rally. He was mad because it's up to the umpire's discretion when they call the score and therefore when the clock starts. And he said, you know, after this kind of physical point, you have the discretion to start the clock later. And what he said, you don't love the good tennis, obviously.
Which was unnecessary. Totally
Of course.
unnecessary.
First of all,
churlish.
it's not her job to like tennis.
No, it's her
It's
job
literally
to
not
be
her job.
impartial and interpret the rules and apply them.
Yeah. So this is a problem with the rules, clearly. The fact that the umpire has very, very broad discretion about when to read the time or read the score.
An example?
Right.
Yeah.
So I didn't like his behavior toward her. She is right, but he also has a point. The rule is flawed,
Yes.
and the application of the rule is inconsistent.
That moment happened after a 19-shot rally that was easily one of the top 2-3 best rallies of that match against Dominic Thiem. And where Rafa is coming from, you have this long busting rally. You hold off maybe 5 more seconds before you call the score. That's within your ability as an umpire. You can make the argument that they don't have to.
Well, of course, and you would be right. They don't have to wait. They could call the score immediately.
But we cannot sit here and pretend that tennis is a strict rules are the rules sport, because it's not.
Right.
And the argument that Rafa could have made more eloquently and I guess more difficult to make in that match at that time in your second or third language, all he had to say was, I really disagree with your use of the time violation warning here. For the record, I would like to state that that was a very intense point, and you have the discretion to hold off for maybe 5 more seconds to give not just myself, but Dominic and the fans and the tennis lovers around the world a moment to digest that so that we can get back to the vicinity of our best for the next point. How about that, Ms. Tort? But that's not how it comes across when he does it, right?
No.
It's like Mr. Bossy Pants walking to the net, pointing, just, you don't like the tennis. I told you.
Novak was also upset by a time violation in the final, and on the change of ends, tapped the umpire on his foot, and then proceeded to sort of bitch to him during the changeover.
Telling him that, oh, congrats, now you're famous.
Yes, that's a common refrain from players, that umpires want to see themselves in lights, you know? That they're trying to make themselves famous when they...
The umpires are already on TV. They do not want this type of attention.
If that umpire wanted to be famous, he would have called Novak for a code violation for touching him. And clearly, we understand that that was not physical abuse. Like, the umpire was not hurt by that. It was a very gentle tap on his foot. But you do not need... Indeed, you should not put your hands on any official.
But if you are one of those rules are the rules, Bob, people,
well,
then this was not it, because that was punishable by $20,000 fine as well as a point penalty.
Rules are rules, right?
It's also very simple. We talk about this all the time. You have zero need ever to touch an umpire. There is literally no reason other than shaking their hand at the end of the match for you to touch an umpire.
Right. Also, I have seen quite a bit of impugning the credibility and authority of umpires in my lifetime since that whole incident where we were lectured about that's why, a game penalty was inflicted on a certain person. Yeah, I've seen it quite a bit.
If you're sitting at home inclined to be thinking, well, what if Serena had tapped on Carlos Ramos's feet?
Well, don't, because you know what would happen, so.
But you'd be right to think that.
Yeah.
It's a losing exercise at this point because we maintain that these things happen all the time, whereby rules are not enforced. Some umpires are more lax with others than other people, and depending on the way they feel that day, maybe, or the way a situation feels to them in that moment, there are a lot of variables. Rules are never just the rules. So, once and for all, miss us with that. Now the Roger Federer stuff. This was delicious. It was so good.
Oh, you mean Tennis Sangren having 7 whole match points against Roger Federer and losing every single one?
The whole match was a snack, a meal, a 4-course feast. Save for Roger's pain, sorry to him, that he had to go through that. Mm-hmm. But what he did in that match was worthy of an induction into the Body Serve Hall of Fame. He came so close to being inducted into the Body Serve Hall of Shame. And he just flipped that switch.
I know.
Like one of the GOATs that he is.
But, I mean, we could not realistically induct him in the Hall of Shame.
It was something that we would have had to have given serious consideration to.
There are a lot of intangibles that go into that decision, though.
But for the nature of what he did, he is an inductee into the Body Serve Hall of Fame, joining Miss Rybarikova, as well as somebody else that regrettably we don't quite remember right now.
Wow, quite the Hall of Fame.
So perhaps
we can't even remember who was in it.
So perhaps the longtime listeners can let us know who Federer joins in this esteemed category.
Actually, I kind of feel bad about Rybarikova now that Colleen has suffered such a long career,
interruption?
Yeah.
That was totally unrelated to what had happened then.
Okay, fine.
So fine, Federer beats Sangren, comes back from 2-1 down. He looks like he's completely gone in this match. The body won't hold up. And that we're going to have Tennis Sangren miraculously again, deeper into an Australian Open. He would have been a semi-finalist. While Federer was going through it though, he got called for a code violation for audible obscenity.
He said the F word.
Yeah. And so when Miss Veljovic calls him for this, he walks to the chair and she goes, I didn't quite hear it, but the lines person did. The lines judge did. So he marches back to the back of the court and he kind of leans forward, steps to the lines judge, not really in her face, but kind of in her face, calmly interrogates her, gets the response, and then marches back to Veljovic. At which point she unhooks her mic, unscrews it, swivels it out of the way so that we don't catch what's going on, and leans forward in anticipation. And Federer, watching this happen, says something, and then she says something, and then it's over. And it was such a boss experience to watch.
Yeah, there's no reason to approach a lines person and talk to them like that. It was reported that he said, I didn't say I would kill you. Are you serious?
And then the lines judge was like, listen, bitch. I'm here to call lines and call it as I see it. And I said what I said.
Yeah.
If you got something to say, take it up with Miss Veljovic if you so choose. If you are
dare.
that reckless with your life.
Afterward, he said, I guess that lines person understands Swiss German or whatever. I didn't know that fuck was a Swiss German word. Did you?
It was pronounced like fuck.
He speaks so many languages, he just forgets.
Just got a little bit mangled there.
All right, shall we move on to the women?
Yes. Where can we... What?
Where to start?
How? What?
Sonya Kenin becomes the 10th woman since the start of Serena Williams' maternity leave to win a Grand Slam.
Say what now?
10 out of the 12 majors contested since the Australian Open 2017 have gone to a different person.
Mm-hmm. And while some will say that that is amazing parity and a banner moment for women's tennis, you are here to say...
Stop. Don't... No, we were talking about this in the car last night, and I have to say I feel that I feel a bit hamstrung by the philosophy of our show sometimes. We've been very, very vocal supporters of women's tennis and tried to hit back at critics as much as possible, wherever possible. And there is a point where my personal feelings start to kind of conflict with that.
I'm glad you segued from we to my. Mm-hmm. Because this
I'm not saying that you have a problem with it.
Well, you said it's a tenet of our show. We have been trying to do this, but now you are here to speak for yourself.
And from my perspective, you know, we're going to get into Kenin and the great things that she did at this tournament, but overall, I like to see a sport with some more players dominating at the top. A key rivalry, perhaps, or a player who's winning multiple slams over the past few years. We've seen Halep and Osaka repeat. They were the only repeat winners over the past 3 years. Before that, Serena pretty much dominated the decade. But this is a very, very long transition period for women's tennis. Because it's going on and on, right?
That presumes that it will ever happen again.
Right. And so, of course, we've heard people say we need a dominant champion in women's tennis. And a lot of those people are detractors. Like, they're operating in bad faith. I think that I'm coming from a place of, I love this sport. And for me, this isn't my ideal state.
But you're in a position now where you're a Serena fan. She's not winning. You've allowed Naomi Osaka onto your train. And she put in a horrendous performance at this tournament. So where does that leave you?
Well, it doesn't have to be Serena, obviously. She's 38 years old. It has to be someone else.
That's what I'm saying. And it wasn't Naomi. Your problem is, and a lot of the problem for the folks who share the same opinion as you do, is it's not your fave who's winning.
Well, but who's winning? They're winning 1, and that's it.
So if somebody were to come here and start winning 6... If it's somebody you don't like now and they're on to major number 5 or 6, you'd be then on board with them because they are winning?
No, I can't promise that I would be a fan, but I could say that that's more of the tour that I think would generate interest and attention from more casual fans and would be the kind of tour that I would rather watch, honestly.
See, I call bullshit on that because, I just call bullshit on that.
Well, you're free to do that, but I'm telling you how I feel.
I just feel like you need to expand your...
You mean like if Sonya Kenin wins the calendar year Grand Slam?
Yes.
The Golden Slam?
Yeah.
That's not going to make me a fan of her. But it is certainly something that generates discussion and marketing interest in women's tennis. Mm-hmm. Women's, like the WTA would probably prefer that someone like Naomi or Coco or Simona Halep does it. But...
I think that that's all just... talking out of people's asses when they say that, because historically
we've talking about me. I'm the one who's saying it.
Unfortunately, you're wrapped up in it right now, but we've seen that the history of women's sport and the way that it's disadvantaged in terms of marketing and all these ideas that people come up to try and fix this problem that is absolutely there, that people don't watch women's sport the way that they watch men's sport. It has to do with structural issues from a youth level right up to the professional level. It has nothing to do with one person capturing the imagination over multiple slam wins. Serena, by and large, wasn't able to do that for a large swath of her career. Like, what it's going to take is for fathers to be girl dads, if we're to use that from the happenings of the last week, for people to tune in to women's college athletics, to watch women's cricket. Like, it goes across the board. Like, we need to change our ethos with the way that we value sport. Like, when we start to value women's athletic contributions more, then we will see the WTA thrive better. That doesn't mean that the WTA as an institution isn't at fault and hasn't made bad decisions in terms of marketing the sport. But to say that it's just that we need this one person to come and like do all that, I don't buy into that anymore.
No, I don't think you're characterizing what I said 100% accurately.
How much percent?
Maybe 62.
I'll take it.
Myself and the people who listen to the show are largely fans of women's tennis, and we are operating in good faith. You know, we're not trying to denigrate the sport. We want to see it thrive, and I'm also not prescribing the ways in which the WTA will be successful. I don't know what makes women's sport successful. I'm telling you honestly the type of tennis that I want to see.
Yeah, but then you said, I think that this will be good for women's tennis, and I don't necessarily agree with that.
Right.
I don't see that is more beneficial than having a plethora of talented women who can show up at any moment and snatch a slam.
Yes, but the flip side of that is you have a lot of extremely talented players flop.
Okay.
We don't need to get into it, but like I personally would just like to see some of these top players assert themselves more consistently. And actually, Simona Halep is someone who is doing that.
Yeah.
Who just reached her 8th semifinal, who was a 2-time slam winner, who very well could have been an Australian Open champion. Her ceiling is very, very high now because she won surprisingly on grass.
Anyway.
Let's not dwell on that. I think it would be patronizing to celebrate every single achievement of women's tennis only because it's women's tennis. That's what I'm saying.
Well, it took us a while to get there.
At the same time, I'm not saying that this isn't an incredible achievement, if that makes sense. I know that's a difficult, two difficult thoughts to hold in the same hand.
Let me just say this. You know what? Sonya Kenin, she's got spunk.
And I
you
hate
spunk. I told you I had a joke for you on this episode, and that was it. And you got it. I'm so pleased.
Oh my God.
That you caught it right away.
I hope some of the older listeners of the Body Serve will pick up on that reference. But
it's iconic.
To be clear, I love spunk, which is disgusting.
Wow. This was not where this was supposed to go.
You didn't really think that through very well.
I didn't expect you to do all that. As per usual, you are doing more than is required.
The most, even?
I don't know what your ceiling is at this point for doing the most.
But on that subject, that ferocity that you see from Sonya Kenin is one of the things that I most like about her. Her intensity is really the word. Jerry Nathan described it as ambient rage, which I felt was perfect because she has rage coming out of her irrespective of the moment. Like, she could have won a point and you still feel this anger seeping out. The way that she stomps around behind the baseline in between points, even if she's dominating a match, right? It's so interesting.
Her horizontal stomp from side to side in between points along the baseline is one of my favorite things in tennis right now. Because the thing that I've taken away from watching Sonya Kenin this past 2 weeks, yes, she has these volatile moments. Somdev Devarman out here saying, I hope she's able to fix that at some point.
Those tantrums.
Dude, miss all of us with that.
Oh my God.
Focus on your lane. Stay in your lane. Make sure that you're not swerving in and out. It's not needed. I like that these temporary moments of fury are in service of her larger goal, which is an undying, unflinching self-belief. And I said to you in that car ride that I'm referencing again, well, you referenced it first yesterday, that Sonya Kenin is emblematic at this point in this tournament of a player who is in the midst of that singular moment where you are fearless in your career. And it's such a stark contrast to so many players that we've seen in the last few years. Perhaps none greater than Serena Williams, where the moment becomes too much. Garbiñe Muguruza double faulting all over the place. She only had 8 double faults in that match, but twice they came back to back, and twice they were on incredibly important moments. The last and the ultimate one being on match point. And Sonya Kenin she's not deterred by these momentary lapses, by these huge errors where she may hit a swinging volley in the bottom of the net. She then stomps to the next to the next point and gets on with it, knowing that she's got somewhere to be and she's gonna get there. Eventually, once you've won enough, once you've experienced life enough, I think there's a symbiotic relationship between the two. It's not just winning on court, it's losing off court. And the relationship between the two puts into perspective what's at play. And I don't know how long players are able to hold on to this purple patch of fearlessness, but Sonya Kenin is in the midst of it right now.
Right.
And it's able to boost maybe some flaws in her game, some deficiencies in her game. You may look at Sonya Kenin play tennis and say, how is she winning these matches? She doesn't have the tools to be thwarting a Garbiñe Muguruza or a Serena Williams or a Bianca Andreescu or a Naomi Osaka. All these top players that she's beaten, especially on hard courts in the last year. But that self-belief and a solid game and a sneaky good to great game that's still developing can achieve a lot. And it has.
At her stage in her career, she doesn't have the weight of memory on her. She doesn't have those 2 years down in the dumps like Muguruza did, who, she felt that the media had largely given up on her, that she was criticized heavily.
That they were unfair to her.
Like many players, she doesn't have some of the personal trials as an adult that she didn't have to endure as a professional tennis player, like you said. That will change. Players like Andreescu, Osaka, Ostapenko won majors young, and they won in their first Grand Slam final. That we've seen, you emerge from those finals a different person. And not everybody approaches it the same way. Kenin may bounce back and win like a bunch more majors. I wouldn't be surprised if she won more, because there is like this fire and this determination in her, this belief. I don't know where it comes from, but like she is super intense, and she's been working on her game. She's a counterpuncher, but she's not. Like, she's not a pusher. She can create angles. She can redirect the ball when she's, when a lot of players would be blown off the court by more powerful players. Like, she has a lot of talent, but what's really striking is that she believes that she should be here, and she's taken the steps to sort of assure that she stays.
2 things from this final. 1, Muguruza on paper is the big favorite, despite her sojourn of 2 years in the wilderness.
She's not seeded.
We know that her pedigree and her talent is top-notch. Like, you watch Garbiñe Muguruza play in her pomp, and you get it. I'll never forget the first time I saw her in person. It wasn't on a tennis court. It was her bouncing through the Cincinnati grounds with such a regal air that you couldn't help but turn and watch. Just this woman walk, because she has that aura about her. And you watch her play tennis at a high level. You watch the lines that she cuts on a tennis court. You watch the technique. You watch, frankly, the all-round beauty and aesthetically pleasing nature of her and her game, and it's enthralling, right? So all that is wrapped up in her 2 Grand Slams heading into this final, the pedigree of having beaten Serena Williams and Venus Williams in a Grand Slam final, and she's on the comeback trail. She's got Conchita Martinez in her camp again. She's gotten rid of Sam Sumik, and you think, well, wow, this is inevitable. But you've got Sonya Kenin, who's got this unyielding self-belief and also a resume on hard court. Let's not forget that as much as she is a newcomer to a lot of folks, she had the results last year. Nobody won more hard court matches on the WTA than Sonya Kenin last year. And she beat a lot of top players.
She beat the number 1 player 2 tournaments in a row.
Yeah. The number 1 ranking switched hands, but she beat both of them.
Barty
Naomi
and
Osaka and Ash Barty. I watched that match, and honestly, after the first set, even though Muguruza won that first set, I thought to myself, Kenin is winning this match. And I'm not here to, bullshit you with that. That was my honest opinion. And the reason why I thought that was, Muguruza threatened to run away with that first set. She got up the early break. She had triple break point to get up the double break. And Kenin held in that situation. And by the end of that first set, it was, frankly, Muguruza hanging on to win that first set. And that's just the way it happened. Muguruza won the first set 6-4. Kenin came back 6-2. And then at 2-all in the third set, Kenin is again faced with love 40 on her serve. Muguruza has triple break point, and Kenin wins 5 straight points to put her nose ahead 3-2 and eventually win that third set 6-2. That is incredible.
I think overall, this turnaround for Garbiñe is amazing and more premature than a lot of people thought. Tennis Twitter can hang its hat on being right about Sam Sumik and Conchita Martinez. People have been telling her to dump Sumik for how many years? And say, please hire Conchita, and look what happened. It
happened sooner than Conchita or Garbiñe imagined as well.
And so I think, we are... Maybe her head didn't catch up with her game. Maybe she didn't... It happened too fast for her, too. But she pretty much did it all during this tournament. She comes in with this virus. She gets bageled in her first set of the tournament against Shelby Rogers. She beats Tomljanovic in another 3-set match. She beats 3 top 10 players, Svitolina, number 9 Bertens, number 4 Halep, And number 30, Pavlyuchenkova, who is a 3-time quarterfinalist here, had just beaten Pliskova, was going to be a very tough out in that stage. And she just couldn't quite get over the hump. Garbiñe actually plays very good defense. I know some people, they try to take that away from her. She plays very good defense. She's still not the
quickest person, but she plays good defense.
However, she's not going to win a major by playing defense against Sonya Kenin.
No.
Getting bullied around the baseline in the third set, she's not going to win a major like that.
The other thing that we haven't talked about on this show that was a huge factor in both draws was the slowness of the court. Mm-hmm. You talk about parity versus having somebody dominate. I think that is the biggest factor.
I do too.
Because the sport conceptually is dominated by men's tennis, and the powers that be decided that in service of 4 5-hour 5-set matches, they would slow down courts to get these bruising 20-30 shot rallies. That then had an effect on the women's game as well, because they weren't considered in that decision-making process.
Well, you can't even call it secondary because they weren't actually considered at all. It was because they want to get rid of these serve bots on the men's side.
And so that's why I think you have all these different Grand Slam champions on the women's side. And that leads me to my quiz question for you. It's not a full quiz, but I have one question that it's worth, I guess, what? Let me do a little bit of math here. It's worth 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's worth 17 points.
Out of what?
17.
There's only one question.
Yeah, 17 out of 17 is what you get. There are currently, by my math, 17 active Grand Slam champions on the WTA. I want you to name me all of them.
Okay.
I will help you out by giving you the number. It's like a Sporkle quiz. I'll give you the number that they've won, and you tell me.
Oh no, you don't have to do that.
Oh, I don't?
No, I'm gonna try it without it first.
Okay.
So we have Venus, Serena, Maria.
Tell me what they have.
Oh my God! How much time we have here?
Do you know tennis or not?
Venus 7, Serena 23, Kuznetsova 1.
Incorrect.
Oh shit, 2. I know that.
Yeah.
Halep 2.
Yes.
Kerber 3.
Yes.
Stevens 1.
Yes.
Osaka 2.
Yes.
Does Kim Clijsters count?
Yes.
4.
Yes.
Azarenka 2.
Correct.
Andreescu 1.
Correct.
Ostapenko 1.
Yes.
Kenin 1. Muguruza 2.
Those are all correct.
Did I say Osaka already?
You did.
Oh, okay. Sharapova 5.
Yes. So now you're missing 3 players. You've gotten 14 of 17 so far. I'm impressed with your first run through.
Yeah.
There's
I
one
haven't
player.
quit yet.
Okay. So fine. Sorry.
Oh, Kvitova 2.
Yes. You just asked a question off mic. You should ask that on air right now.
Who won the French last year?
Yeah, think about it.
Like I totally
think
blanked.
about it. Who won the French last year? It was a big shocker. She's currently very prominent in women's tennis. I'm not going to delete this segment of the episode, so you got to hurry up here before you look like a complete fool.
Oh, Barty.
Yes.
She has 1.
And then there's one more. You're missing one. Do you want a clue?
Wozniacki doesn't count.
No, because she's retired. This person's won 1 slam.
I don't know. I can't think
This
of it.
person is older. This person is struggling to win matches at Grand Slams.
Jankovic. She's technically still active. That's a bonus point.
She did not win a slam.
Oh, you're right.
Did not win a slam.
Fuck.
This person is a very accomplished doubles player.
Oh, Sam Stosur.
Correct.
U.S. Open 2009, 2010?
11?
Those years are a blur for me personally, in my personal life, so...
We talked a lot about players who, quite frankly, shit the bed. One of them was Ash Barty.
Oh man, that was not a great match against Kenin. They were both very nervous.
If you were to listen to the live commentary from Chris Evert, you would think it was the worst semifinal ever played.
Oh my god.
In the history of tennis.
What a negative Nancy. Chris Evert was so upset by the level of play in that match. She thought they were both crap. And it wasn't as bad as she described it. It was close. They were both on serve for quite a while in the first set. Barty should have won the first set. She had several chances in the tiebreak.
She was up a break in both sets.
Lost those chances in the tiebreak, and you got the feeling that there was something missing that day. Like, emotionally, there was just a piece missing. She couldn't get over that hump. And when you're playing, when maybe you're a little bit nervous in front of your home crowd in this situation you've never been in before, Kenin is the last person you want to be playing, because she is just brimming with belief. She's not going to let you snatch it.
She wasn't playing well either.
No, but she did play well in some of those key moments.
Yeah, well, that is it, right? When push came to shove, Sonya Kenin, she pushed and she shoved.
I fully expected Barty to get to the final here. I really did. I thought we were heading toward a Barty Muguruza final, and I'm not going to rag on her because this was actually her first semifinal outside of Roland Garros. She's only been to 2 slam semis. Her record against top 10 players in majors has not been great, but I felt that her run was very good up to that point.
People have been throwing that around a lot, but she beat a bunch of top 10 players at the year-end championships to win that title.
Yes. I think there's no question about her ranking. I know people maybe don't find her that interesting or wonder how she got there. She got there by winning a major, winning the finals, amassing a whole lot of points,
winning Miami,
and beating the people she was supposed to beat. I happen to like her game. Not everyone does, which is fine. But I was annoyed that she didn't get to the final, but I was not disappointed because it's not my place to be disappointed. She brought her niece to the press conference, who is like 3 months old, who's a little baby. And controversy appears around every corner, even when you don't expect it.
Preemptively, she was like, listen, this is what life's really all about. When folks are, I guess, expecting her to be distraught, wrecked to pieces for having disappointed a nation on her home soil. In the face of all those sporting narratives, those tropes, those tired cliches, Ash Barty appeared in press with her niece.
And some people labeled it unprofessional, which I can't believe in 2020 that we're going down that road. I realize she's not the mother of this child, but in this year of our Lord, 2020, are we really talking about women bringing babies to the workplace being unprofessional and distracting? Like, why would you even bring that up?
See, I can't wait for the behind-the-scenes video of Ash with that baby being shown the behind-the-scenes, and in 18 years, she's winning the Australian Open, like we did with Sonya Kenin and Kim Clijsters.
Oh, God.
I can't wait for that. But listen, maybe this was an emotional shield for Ash Barty that has been posited.
That's so rude. Like, it's so offensive.
If it is, right? Even if it is. Listen.
She said, I'm going to bring this baby to the press conference and none of y'all can do shit about it. Mm-hmm. And if you talk crazy to me, you better realize that you're talking crazy to me with a baby in my arms.
But listen, even if it is an emotional shield, which is like such a cringe turn of phrase, this is also a woman who left the sport in her teen years because for whatever reason she had to go find herself, figure things out, could not deal with life on tour. It was not what she wanted for herself. And wrapped up in that is mental health and being able to take care of yourself and knowing what works for you. And so if this worked for Ash Barty and helped maintain her mental and emotional health, hashtag self-care. It's not that deep.
Also, if you feel that you cannot ask tough questions in front of a 3-month-old infant who does not have the power of speech or discernment, that's on you, boo-boo. You ask those questions. What's the baby gonna do? Come on now. Nobody wants to hear that. So, the semifinals, as I said, Halep reached her 8th slam semi. Barty, as the number 1 player, reaches her first outside of Roland Garros. This is Kenin's first quarterfinal at a major, her first semi, her first final, obviously her first win. And Muguruza is very much back in the fold. Someone that people predicted back in 2014-15 that she could be a double-digit slam winner. And, that is still in the cards. She has something about her.
Mm-hmm. if you can beat Simona Halep in straight sets in that situation, why can't you beat Sonya Kenin in the final?
Mm-hmm. In a very high-quality match.
Yeah. That match was probably the banner big-name match, high-stakes match of the tournament. While it was only 2 sets, these 2 women brought it. And every time Simona stuck her neck ahead, Garbiñe reeled her back in. And it made for compelling watching.
Some other great performances in the second week. Pavlyuchenkova versus Kerber. How do you hit 71 winners against someone who plays defense like Kerber? Like, I want to know how that's even possible.
This may be tangential, but there were 2 people who had remarkably bad weeks. A remarkably bad fortnight. Tomáš Muster and Sam Sumik. Muster got cut. He got the boot from Dominic Thiem's camp after like the second round.
Yes, like mid-tournament.
Yeah, and he goes all the way to the final. And it becomes clear that Muster is just kind of a piece of shit. That nobody wants to deal with all that mess. Right? Like, that's just it. Like, you had the Austrian birthright connection, and that's just where it ended.
Dominic was very diplomatic about the split. He didn't say much. But Muster, wow, when given the opportunity, he made all sort of insinuations.
About, like, it may look good from the outside, but is the house burning from the inside?
And also that these young players today are spoiled, and they want everything their way, and he just can't exist in that world. Like, it was not really your choice.
No. You were kind of an irrelevant relic there before he brought you back into the fold. Just saying. Nobody liked him when he was on tour. Nobody liked Tomáš Muster.
But he was one of the clay greats. How many Muster records was Rafa pursuing throughout the 2000s, you know?
So there was that, and then Sam Sumik missed me with this business of, well, he took Pavlyuchenkova to the quarterfinals. Listen, Pavlyuchenkova has been to the quarterfinals of the Australian Open now 3 of the last 4 years. So I don't buy that.
Yeah, she's been taking herself.
I'm not on that train. What I saw was a coach whose charge was now free from the shackles of his tyranny and was able to return to the greatness that she once promised. Like, this dude has a reputation, okay?
In the round of 16, Kontaveit guts out this 2-hour and 42-minute win over Świątek. The result, that was a toss-up to the very, very end. Świątek was injured. She had her leg all wrapped. She was still diving and rolling around the court, fighting for every ball. Like, this girl's going to be a problem. And Kontaveit really reminded people who she is and the type of ceiling that she has, which is very high. Although, she did lose 6-1, 6-1, was it? To Simona Halep in the quarters?
She did.
But she could have been tired.
Świątek is a player who missed most of the latter half of last season due to injury, and she reminded us of her prodigious talent. This is not just somebody who is gifted technically, this is somebody who is gifted physically, and like Kenin, you see a lot of, I'm going where I need to be in her.
Yeah.
Doubles results.
Ooh. So, in women's doubles, we got 3 of the top 4 seeds in the semifinal and the number 7 seed in the semifinal. The winners were Timea Babos and Kristina Mladenovic, the number 2 seeds, beating number 1 Stritzova and Xie. It was last year's Roland Garros champion beating last year's Wimbledon champion. On the men's side, number 11 Rajiv Ram and Joe Salisbury beat Australians Saville and Purcell. Rajiv Ram has been out here for a long, long time, waiting for his first Grand Slam win. I think I read it was like 58 Grand Slam tournaments before this win.
He's 35 years old.
He won, a silver medal in mixed with Venus Williams at the 2016 Olympics. And these guys have made themselves into one of the top doubles team in the world, really.
Salisbury's up to number 4. At this rate, he'll be able to pick his own doubles partner when it comes to the Olympics.
Yes.
Jamie Murray starts sending some chocolates.
In mixed doubles, we have Barbara Krejcikova and Nikola Mektic beating this superstar team of Bethany Maddox-Sands and Jamie Murray. Krejcikova becomes the first woman to repeat in mixed doubles since Yana Novotná. In 1989, Yana was a friend and mentor to Krejcikova. Always happy to be reminded of Yana's achievements.
Krejcikova also had an extended run across all formats at this tournament because she qualified in singles to make the main draw in singles. She played women's doubles, and she wins the title in mixed doubles. Yeah. So it was a lucrative week for her.
And she's a former slam winner with Siniakova.
A few other et ceteras to wrap up this episode. We want to delve into this Margaret Court thing a little bit.
Yeah, in a different way, because I feel we've said everything we could say about opinions and free speech and all that stuff, consequences of speech. There's actually some new news for once. John McEnroe and Martina Navratilova, after their Legends match, staged a protest on court, snatched the umpire's mic, and made a statement. Martina and John were carrying this homemade sign that said Ivan Gulagong Arena. Martina had previously written an op-ed this week about how it's time to change the name of Margaret Court Arena and that it pains her to say this. I mean, Billie Jean has been on this for a while. It is newsworthy. In this sport, it is exceedingly rare to see political statements on the court.
It was an actual protest.
It is
on a tennis court.
Yes.
By tennis players. Mind you, they're retired. Mm-hmm. But this was newsworthy.
When I say exceedingly rare, I mean it never happens. Literally never happens. Tennis is behind a lot of major American sports in, what's the word?
Being proactive.
Political awareness?
Not just being politically aware, but being proactive about it.
Mm. And of course the TV feed cut off immediately because tennis is not really... whenever something truly newsworthy happens that is outside of the actual playing of the game, TV's not interested.
But more specifically, Tennis Australia was not interested in having this broadcast.
No. So, obviously, Martina and John were given a talking to by Tennis Australia because they issued an apology the next day.
And as much as you may think of Martina and John as indispensable to tennis broadcasts, they still carry credentials that are at the sole discretion of the issuer, being Tennis Australia.
Yes, this is a good point, because legends of the game, people you see as powerful and influential, they are vulnerable to having their credentials stripped away. Imagine how the rest of us feel, right?
Because shortly after this incident, this protest, both John McEnroe and Martina Navratilova issue apologies. ESPN cuts away from the tennis to do a little segment about it, led by Chris McKendry. And she reads off both statements, and at the end of John McEnroe's statement, McEnroe ends by saying, "In this case, I was not aware of the Tennis Australia rules and protocol for issuing credentials." Protocol was a much rehashed word in this whole saga. Mm-hmm. You think John McEnroe randomly brought up credentials in this apology? I don't.
No, that was clear. Because he already had a go at Margaret in one of his Commissioner of Tennis segments earlier in the tournament. This was unprecedented, though. They actually bought the materials. Martina put together the sign in her hotel room. It was meant to be an homage to Aboriginal art. I don't know if Yvonne Goolagong was consulted in advance. I have a feeling she was not. I didn't get that from any of the reporting. I am interested in what she feels about the whole thing, really. But it does put into relief the level of sort of political awareness in tennis, because it's just almost completely absent. Players are challenged to comment about these things. Credit to journalists who are on site, and they, for the most part, fail miserably.
Yeah, seriously. And the tenor and the overarching feeling that you get from these interactions is one of, I don't really want to upset Tennis Australia too much. I'm going to say enough to keep people at bay from roasting me, but I'm also not going to say enough to really trouble Tennis Australia. and move that needle.
Novak was asked about Court, and he responded, "Margaret is a huge champion, a tennis hero in Australia and also around the world. One of the most important tennis players in the history of the women's game. Of course, when she says something like that, it has a huge impact. I don't support what she said. I don't think it was the right thing to say, but she probably has her reasons, and we have to respect that she has a difference in opinion. That's all there is to it." Novak is always like trying to do too much, because he could have just stopped as, "I don't agree with what she said." It could have been like a one-sentence response.
This video of Andy Murray has been going around since this happened, where he was asked about Margaret Court 2 years ago, I believe, or 3 years ago. And he was very unequivocal. It's like, yeah, that's just not it. You love who you love. If a man wants to marry a man, like, it's not the end of the world. That's it. But with a lot of these top players, especially the big three, you get the piece that, like I said, they think you want to hear, and then also the piece that will appease the authorities. Right? Like, they speak in this way that is to assuage everybody, and it just doesn't do anything. It comes from a place of privilege. Folks will push back and say, well, they're tennis players. They're not here to make big political statements. But that's ludicrous. Sport is by nature political.
And in this position, it's not an incredible hardship to be forced to answer questions like this.
In the case of Federer, is Rolex going to drop him? Is Uniqlo going to drop him? They surely are not. Federer is asked about, and he says, yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one. I don't know what to tell you. She's obviously an incredible tennis champion, one of the most successful ever. I know this subject also tears apart a lot of opinions and minds. So I think Tennis Australia, they got to do what they got to do. I honestly really have no opinion on that. What?
Wow, thanks so much for that. I don't even know if Rafa was asked about it. I haven't heard anything about him. It's just like, why even say anything? Because you've just said a whole lot of nothing. But I blame Tennis Australia for a lot of this, because they've muddied the waters completely.
And the takeaway is we cannot rely on these players, save for Andy Murray and some lower ranked players, no disrespect to them, to have anything forthright or to the point about this.
Yeah. It's just interesting that you're in a time when in American mainstream sports, sort of social justice movements are, I don't want to say fashionable, but it's a little bit more common to hear NBA superstars speak out against or about political subjects, especially in the NBA. In the NFL, we see that people's careers can be ended for those things.
But really what it is that we leave the heavy lifting to black people, and more specifically black women, to make these causes come to the forefront and to have any meaningful political action spoken about. We accept that this is par for the course from the likes of Federer, Djokovic, Nadal, that we shouldn't expect more when we should.
But I guess like we're supposed to expect it from LeBron and Chris Paul and Colin Kaepernick and Serena Williams. Like, those people are expected to carry the burden.
And the reason why that happens is that their activism is born out of necessity, out of survival.
Right.
Whereas the pedestal that these straight, mostly white men sit on, it affects them so minutely.
And so it's like, why comment if I don't have to?
Why invite that kind of critique? And so I think we're just at a loss here. We just have to cut our losses. Like, there's nothing to be gained from asking or expecting these top men players to opine on these things, because like it's fruitless, which is sad.
Also, there's no use at this point of expecting purity from the people who are making waves, like Martina Navratilova, who has a lot to answer for in the past few years about her anti-trans rhetoric. That didn't even really cross my mind in this situation, because there are basically no allies in the mainstream tennis world, and she's one of them on this topic. I don't know what to do with that. Like, she has changed her legacy profoundly in the past few years for the worse. This is a good thing, but what is the use at this point of arguing over whether or not she's the right vessel for this message when she's the only vessel.
It really is depressing. It really is. Ekaterina Makarova has announced her retirement from tennis. Farewell, Godspeed to her. This is somebody who punched above her weight many times, made Grand Slam quarterfinals when folks would not have expected it, beat a bunch of top 10 players, was that player that you did not want to see in your half of the draw early on.
Mm-hmm.
And in sad news, Juan Martín del Potro has had yet another surgery, this time again on his knee. He's had wrist surgeries, he's had knee surgeries, he's had so many surgeries it's hard to keep track and count of them. Just when you think that del Potro could potentially be over the worst of it, something else happens. And this dude, is he the most unlucky tennis player in terms of injuries? You just feel for him. This is somebody with prodigious talent, one of the few people outside of the Big Four to win a slam in the last 12 years. We talk all the time about who is going to be that next guy. Delpo was that guy, and he promised to do it many more times, and his career was completely derailed by injury. And the last time he came back to tour full time, he reimagined his game to still be competitive and be back in the top 10 again. And to have this happen one more time, it's heartbreaking for him.
The Tennis Hall of Fame just announced its inductees for the year. We're going to see Conchita Martinez and Goran Ivanisevic inducted in July. Both of them are coaches of Grand Slam finalists this year.
Being at the Australian Open, they had this ceremony where after it was announced, they feted them, and both their charges made it to the final. Conchita losing with Muguruza in the final, and then Djokovic winning the title. So it was a pretty big week for both of them. That brings us to the end of this episode. We are quite frankly thrilled that the Australian Open is over.
I am deleting the app right now.
I think I used it maybe 3 times. It was the most useless slam app that there ever was, in my opinion. We are also, on a personal note, off to Mexico on Wednesday. We are taking a little bit of a vacation. We're going to Puerto Vallarta, and we just want to state for the record that this is outside of the GoFundMe. This is a personal trip.
Yes.
Because,
personal funds only.
This can be a bit muddied, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised or mad at folks to be like sitting at home wondering if we're taking vacations on people's dime. We're not. The GoFundMe money is strictly accounted for tennis-related stuff. We hopefully will have some good weather, a little bit of R&R, and a break from tennis. Mm-hmm. The first month has been a lot. That said, thank you to everybody who has contributed to the GoFundMe. Like we said in previous shows, we have prizes. We will be dealing with that once we get back from Mexico. We will officially end the GoFundMe right as we are about to board the plane on Wednesday. Thanks for listening. You can find me on Twitter at tennis_John.
I'm James. I'm at ElliotJMR.
2 L's, 2 T's. The podcast is at The Body Serve on Twitter, on Instagram. If you've yet to leave an iTunes review, please do that. We appreciate those. And one of the things that we'll ask of you as listeners in 2020 is to share the podcast. If that means on Twitter or word of mouth, if you have a coworker who's into tennis, you meet somebody new who's into tennis, say, hey, I listened to this little show and I enjoy it. You might like it too. That's one of the ways that we're going to count on you to grow the show in 2020. Thanks for listening. Till next time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.